In the summer of 1528, fear moved faster than any army or messenger across England. It arrived without warning and vanished just as quickly, leaving bodies behind. They called it the English sweat. There were no rashes, no slow decline, only a sudden chill, a crushing fever, and sweat so heavy it soaked through clothes and bedding. Tonight, we step into that summer of terror, into a mystery that medicine still cannot fully explain, and a disease that haunted England like a ghost, striking hard, striking fast, and then disappearing.
In the summer of 1528, England was seized by a terror unlike anything it had known before. This was not a war, it was not a famine, and it was not the plague. People went to bed healthy and confident in their future, only to be dead by morning. A man could eat dinner with his family, complain of a slight chill before sleep, and never wake again. Entire households collapsed in a single night. Towns fell silent in days. Bells rang endlessly, not for celebration, but for burial. There were no warning signs, no visible marks, no time to flee. They called it the English sweat, a disease so fast, so lethal, and so mysterious that even now, more than 5 centuries later, its true nature remains unknown. A killer without a pattern. The English sweat did not behave like any disease Europeans understood. It was not like smallpox, which scarred its victims and lingered for weeks. It was not like plague, which announced itself with swollen lymph nodes and blackened skin. It was not even like influenza, which weakened slowly and spared many. The English sweat arrived suddenly, almost violently. Victims described a sharp chill, even in warm weather. A feeling of dread often followed, as though the body itself sensed what was coming. Then, within hours, the fever surged. Sweat poured uncontrollably from the skin. Clothing became soaked. Bed sheets had to be changed repeatedly. The heart raced. Muscles cramped. Headaches became unbearable. Delirium set in. Some collapsed into a deep, unnatural sleep. Many never woke up. The most terrifying detail was the speed. If the illness lasted more than 24 hours, survival was likely. But many died in 6 hours, some in as little as 3. It was as if the body simply overheated and shut down. Doctors powerless, treatments deadly. Physicians were utterly unprepared. Medical knowledge in the early 16th century was based on ancient Greek theories of bodily humors. Disease was believed to be caused by imbalances of heat, cold, dryness, and moisture. So doctors tried to cool patients by bleeding them. It killed many. Others wrapped sufferers in thick blankets to force out the illness through sweat. It killed even more. Some advised drinking strong wine. Others recommended prayer, fasting, or charms. None of it worked. The best chance of survival, ironically, was doing almost nothing at all, lying still, lightly covered, drinking small amounts of water, and waiting. Most people didn't get that chance. The first appearance, 1485. The English sweat first appeared in 1485, the same year England emerged from decades of civil war. Henry Tudor had just defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth, ending the Wars of the Roses and becoming Henry VII. Almost immediately, reports spread of a strange new illness moving through the country. Many believed it arrived with foreign mercenaries who fought in the war. Others blamed God, seeing the disease as punishment for years of bloodshed and political chaos. It struck London particularly hard. Then, just as suddenly as it came, it vanished. No slow fade, no lingering cases, No clear explanation. The English sweat had announced itself and disappeared. A disease that returned, like a ghost. That disappearance gave England false hope. The sweat returned in 1508, again in 1517, and again, most devastatingly, in 1528. Each outbreak followed the same pattern: sudden appearance, explosive spread, high mortality, and abrupt disappearance. No one could predict when it would return or who it would take. And with each outbreak, fear grew deeper. People began to realize this was not a one-time curse. It was something waiting in the shadows. 1528, when the sweat escaped England. The outbreak of 1528 changed everything. For the first time, the English sweat did not remain confined to the island. It crossed the English Channel. Within weeks, it tore through ports in the Netherlands and northern Germany. From there, it spread east and north, into Scandinavia, Poland, and beyond. The speed was astonishing. In some cities, the disease arrived and burned out in less than a month, leaving mass graves behind. Universities shut down, churches closed, markets were abandoned. Entire towns isolated themselves from travelers. At one German university, nearly half of the students died in a single month. People began to whisper that this was no natural illness at all, but a curse tied specifically to England. The disease of the strong one of the most disturbing features of the English sweat was who it killed. It did not primarily target children or the elderly. It struck young, healthy adults, especially men in their prime. Merchants, soldiers, nobles, courtiers. The wealthy died at higher rates than the poor. This defied everything people believed about disease. Illness was supposed to prey on the weak. The English sweat seemed to hunt the strong. Some historians believe this may be because the wealthy lived in crowded homes, wore heavy clothing, and consumed rich diets, factors that may have worsened the illness. But to the people of the time, it felt deeply unnatural. If strength offered no protection, then no one was safe. Henry VIII and the panic at the top. No one embodied that fear more than King Henry VIII. By 1528, Henry had already lost close friends to the English sweat. He knew how fast it killed. When reports reached London that the disease was spreading again, the king panicked. He fled the city. Henry moved from palace to palace, sometimes staying only a few days before fleeing again. He dismissed servants, reduced his household, avoided crowds entirely. He believed the disease followed people, not places. His fear intensified when Anne Boleyn, the woman he desperately wanted to marry, fell ill with the sweat. She survived, but many others did not. For weeks, England effectively had no functioning central government. Decisions stalled, courts closed, trade slowed. Fear ruled from the very top. Cities of silence. As the sweat spread, England changed. Streets emptied, shops closed, bells rang constantly for the dead. Families sealed themselves indoors. People avoided touch. Handshakes vanished. Church attendance dropped, not from disbelief, but from terror. The irony was cruel. The disease spread fastest in cities, the very places people fled to in past epidemics, seeking safety in numbers. Now, numbers meant death. London, normally loud and crowded, became eerily quiet. The English sweat didn't just kill bodies, it killed normal life. Why was it so different from the plague? The Black Death had returned to England many times by the 1500s. People knew its signs. They feared it, but they understood it. The English sweat was different. It had no visible sores. It left no long recovery. It had no predictable victims. It struck too fast to escape, and most strangely of all, it didn't stay. Plague became endemic. The sweat vanished completely after each outbreak. This baffled physicians then, and now. Theories from the modern world. Because the English sweat disappeared before modern medicine, we can only speculate. One leading theory suggests it may have been a hantavirus spread by rodents. Some modern hantavirus infections cause rapid fever, sweating, and organ failure, sometimes killing within hours. Another theory points to a now extinct viral hemorrhagic fever, similar to Ebola, but far less visible. Others argue it was a unique strain of influenza, mutated into an unusually lethal form. There is also the unsettling possibility that it was something we no longer recognize at all. A pathogen that evolved briefly, devastated populations, and vanished before it could adapt. What makes the mystery harder is that the English sweat left almost no physical evidence. Victims died too quickly for bones to show signs of disease. History recorded the fear, but not the fingerprints. 1551. The final return. The last known outbreak occurred in 1551. This time, a physician named John Caius documented the illness in detail. His account remains the most important medical record we have. He described the sudden onset, the overwhelming heat, the crushing exhaustion, the deadly speed, and then, once again, the disease disappeared. No outbreaks followed, no mutations, no lingering cases, no return. After 1551, the English sweat was gone forever, a disease that vanished without explanation. Most deadly diseases, the English sweat did none of these. It appeared suddenly, returned unpredictably, escaped its homeland, terrified a continent, and vanished without a trace. This is what makes it so unsettling. History remembers its victims, but science cannot name its killer. Why the English sweat still matters. The English sweat reminds us of an uncomfortable truth. Humanity does not always understand its enemies. New diseases can emerge without warning. They can spread faster than knowledge. They can humble kings, empty cities, and rewrite history. And sometimes, they disappear before we ever learn their name. Somewhere in the past, a killer walked through England, finished its work, and vanished into time. All that remains is the memory of sweat, fear, and silence. Closing reflection. The English sweat did not kill millions like the plague, but it killed certainty. It showed that progress could be fragile, that civilization could be shaken overnight, and that even the strongest societies could be undone by something unseen. It was a small disease with an enormous shadow, and 500 years later, it still asks a question we cannot answer.